Spider-Man Brand New Day is officially here, guys, and I am just over the moon on how this film is playing out. I did have a pretty busy last few weeks, so I was unfortunately not able to create as much content as I would have liked for the film, but it was kind of more fun that way because I got to soak in all the anticipation and excitement, and it definitely did not disappoint. To set a tone for how I generally feel about the film, I absolutely loved it. Holding my bias for a second, it is just a fantastic film with great direction and a touching and engaging story, and then putting my bias back in there, it's all that with Spider-Man. Yeah, I freaking loved it. Tom Holland truly solidifies himself as the greatest Spider-Man to be cast, usurping my original biases. Personally, I loved Tobey Maguire's adaptation, of course I still do. I do think that Andrew Garfield is the best actor to be cast for the character, but at this point in time, I do not feel that way. Now, of course, I still love Tobey and Andrew's movies and their adaptations of the character. That'll never change, but Tom Holland does something next level in Spider-Man Brand New Day. If you are a fan of the original Steve Ditko Stan Lee run, it is going to be very reminiscent of that for you. This movie is very much for the fans, and I think Tom Holland made that happen on purpose because he knows how much this character means to so many people, including myself, and he handles that responsibility with such grace and care. And to that, all I can say is thank you so much, Tom. Now let's kick things off with the general story. Now, as Tom and the cast has been stating throughout the press tour, this film is about a young person trying to navigate the tough transition into adulthood in a very unique way. Peter is truly all alone, and he is focusing all of his time and his energy on being Spider-Man, and we see very early on that's taking a huge toll on his physical and mental health. But Spider-Man is on a roll, protecting the streets of New York like no other hero, and we see that in this opening montage, which is fantastic, of Peter fighting a bunch of semi-notable Spidey villains like Tarantula, Boomerang, Tombstone, Scorpion, and the Hand. This montage essentially shows us what Spidey has been up to while MJ and Ned are away for 4 years at MIT, and honestly, the only thing I would want from this montage is a way they explain how Peter gets all of his tech. We know he's probably been dumpster diving and fixing all this technology himself, but I thought it was way too easy to shoehorn in the trope of him selling pictures of Spider-Man to the Daily Bugle, but I guess there was too much to go on, and I'd rather it not be there at all than for it to be shoehorned in. I also really wanted to see more of Scorpion and Tombstone. I really had this thought in the back of my mind that they were going to be a bigger part of the story and have an ulterior motive, but I guess that sets up some great stories in the future, so I'm glad to see that. We also get a taste of this mutation that Peter's going to be going through throughout the movie, and I thought it was very cool to see. I was very interested to see it, and I thought it was handled very nicely, especially in those moments where Peter's emotional state was declining. Not only is it a good callback to Spider-Man 2 when Peter starts losing his powers, but it's kind of similar and takes its own interpretation, and we'll talk about it a lot more later. We also have a very colorful cast of characters in this film that serve great purpose into telling the story, whether it be the return of MJ and Ned, Yelena Belova, the Hulk, the Punisher, and of course, Jean Grey. This story is really unlike anything we've seen before, considering the main threat is not a notable Spidey villain, and I don't even know if you could call Jean Grey the villain, because the main threat is Peter's judgment against the Department of Damage Control, which I think categorizes this movie as smaller potatoes, which I think was needed from Tom Holland's Spider-Man, something that we really needed to see, and probably a way better story than the rumored King in Black story we were supposed to get. We see this cat and mouse type chase of Jean Grey taking over consciousness of multiple New Yorkers to try and find her sister Sarah, who, unknown to our hero Spidey, was taken by the Department of Damage Control for experimentation. Throughout the movie, Jean is on the hunt for something called VMAX, a place where she thinks her sister is, or the key to finding her sister, but ends up being a huge red herring. I admittedly, and honestly, at one point thought VMAX was going to be the Venom symbiote at some point, aka I'm delusional. Anyway, we see Jean take over the consciousness of multiple notable characters like the Scorpion, MJ, the Hulk, and Punisher, and it really serves for a great ride. Peter becomes a little naive and thinks that Bill Metzger, who is the head of the Department of Damage Control, is trying to help Jean Grey and even stop the presenting threat that is Jean Grey, but he's being lied to, and he's actually trying to use Jean Grey's abilities to harness it for himself, to give it to trusting individuals. Now, the DODC are a huge part of Spider-Man history. They actually started all the way back in Spider-Man Homecoming, and they're the reason why Adrian Toomes became the Vulture, and actually why Peter Parker was arrested in Spider-Man No Way Home. So it's not too out of the blue that they were the main threat, but is it interesting now that Bill Metzger is involved, because we know that they're a little bit more mutant focused. Anyways, VMAX ends up being a vent brand like ventilation called VentMax, and the ENT in vent on the label is being peeled off, and it's in the room that they kept Sarah Gray, and it's the last thing she saw before she was killed by experimentation, and she sent the message VMAX to her sister telepathically, which is an insane emotional catalyst for Jean Grey's powers evolving to the powers that we know she has. She essentially freezes everyone within 1 kilometer of her, and it's not up to Spider-Man, but Peter Parker to bring her out of her emotional distress. Now, I've seen the film about 3 times now, and each time I think the story has just gotten better and better, and let's get into specifics on why I think that is, starting out with the surrounding cast. Kicking it off with the sandbox of Marvel characters Peter gets to play around with in this movie: Yelena Belova, Bruce Banner, and Frank Castle. So I think all of us are kind of aware that contractually Marvel makes Sony put some characters of high importance of the Marvel universe inside of the Spider-Man films. In Homecoming, it was Iron Man with a few appearances from Captain America. In Far From Home, it was Nick Fury and Maria Hill. And in No Way Home, it was Doctor Strange and a few appearances from Wong. Now, this movie handles the way Spider-Man plays around in that sandbox a lot differently. Before, in the previous trilogy, it really felt like every character was there to mentor Peter because he was incapable of being his own hero, but that's not the way they portray this at all in this movie. It really feels like he's using the Marvel Universe to his own benefit. Like, he's just using the resources that he has. He's going to the people that he knows just for his own benefit, not really for any advice or mentorship, but just to use their resources, which I think is brilliant. He goes to Yelena because he knows that the new Avengers have access to government databases and whatnot, and Yelena is willing to help him, so why wouldn't he? He goes to Bruce Banner at ESU because he knows Bruce's inhibitor might be the key to solving his own mutation. And Bruce doesn't just hand Peter the blueprints, they really have a thought-provoking conversation, a scientific conversation that leads into Peter having his own ideas and creating his own inhibitor. And obviously we have the Hulk in this movie, which was easily my favorite fight in the movie, and the only crime was that it wasn't longer. And even though his time there was a little short, it makes sense. Like, why wouldn't Jean Grey go and inhabit the strongest Marvel character to take down this vault door to find VMAX? It's common sense, especially because she probably knows that Peter went to him for help. And then there's Frank Castle, aka the Punisher, who I think really shines out in this movie. Frank is such a complex character, and I know there are a lot of complaints about his arc traveling with him throughout different projects, and it does touch upon that arc that we all know and love in this movie, but it doesn't just serve its purpose for Frank to be there. I think it serves more of a purpose for Peter to be aware of it. That little speech that he gives Peter about if the ones that he loved were still alive, he wouldn't be cowering behind a mask, is absolute heat, and 100% the reason that Peter was able to conquer his mutation, conquer all this conflict, and realize that he shouldn't and doesn't have to do this alone. Also, Spider-Man and Punisher's dynamic in this movie is just absolute gold. It's easily one of the best dynamics we have in the MCU, and it is perfect. They perfected it. Now let's talk specifically about Jean Grey here for a second, because oh my god, if you go back to any of my videos, all my old videos that I talk about Spider-Man Brand New Day, whether they're on TikTok or here, I talk about how I think Jean Grey being in this movie is not gonna happen, is a stupid rumor, and I never saw how it would work. And I was completely dead wrong, guys. I was wrong. Not only did Sadie Sink just do a fantastic job as this character, she's such a wonderful actress, but the way they brought this character back into Marvel movies, a little unconventional, but it works so well, and I think it's probably the best option for this character, and let me explain why. Jean Grey is a very troubled character, both in the story and in her on-screen history. They have had a very rough time trying to adapt that darker side of Jean. X-Men The Last Stand was very underwhelming. They sacrificed a lot for the story, and it just turned out a little messy. And the same could be said for the Dark Phoenix adaptation. It felt rushed and messy and didn't really make any sense, and fans didn't really like it. However, this story in Brand New Day, I think, eliminates that darker side of Jean very early on. Something that I think the fans might be okay with. Personally, I would much rather see the Phoenix or Marvel Girl and have this overpowered hero instead of Jean being this overpowered foe and turning on her team. And I think Marvel using their flagship hero, Spider-Man, the greatest superhero of all time, to teach such a troubled character how to be a hero by showing her true heroism in such a major way by using his past experiences, his past trauma, is so touching and is the essence of why people love Spider-Man. And to put the cherry on top, almost sacrificing his life for her, you really can't ask for a better representation of Peter's morals. And that's why I love it so much, is because originally I really thought that, if Jean Grey were to be in this movie, it'd steal the spotlight. It wouldn't really be much of a advancement for Spider-Man. It'd just be a stepping stone for the next Marvel project. But that wasn't the case at all. It's like every character, including Jean Grey, serves a purpose for Peter's story, and that really matters in this moment. And with the uncertainty of how the Marvel Universe will look after Secret Wars, it not only is a really safe option, but honestly, the best option for these characters. Moving on to MJ and Ned. Now, unfortunately, I do think that the consequences from No Way Home did drag a little bit of the story here in Brand New Day, but I think it was very necessary to acknowledge that, and they carried that baggage really well. That one scene with Peter and MJ on the rooftop is incredible. I really thought for a second that True Love's kiss was going to break the spell, but when Jean revealed herself to have inhabited MJ, you could literally feel the air suck out of the room. It was such a great emotional turning point for this story. And on my second time I saw it, I was in a theater full of people who haven't seen it before, and I just got to look around and everyone experience that for the first time. You could feel it in the air. It was so much deeper after that. And then after Jean throws MJ off of the building, Peter's giving up, saying, stop, please stop. Don't hurt her. My heart, man. This woman could care less about him, and that's all he cares about is keeping her safe. What a king. And don't even get me started on when MJ finds the letter that Peter wrote for her. What a great way to tackle that ginormous elephant in the room. MJ being honest about her feelings with Peter, telling him that it was wrong of him to make the decision for her, and telling him, I don't love you because I don't even know you, is the most practical route for this situation and conflict to end. They really could have gone the easy way out and have True Love's kiss break the spell and bring her memories back, but they didn't, and that was the right choice. Now, Ned in this film is actually very scarce, but when he is in there, it really does show why they needed to bring back MJ and Ned for this movie. MJ and Ned have all these memories with Spider-Man. Jean even reveals this while inhabiting MJ. She sees that in MJ's mind, there's this missing link between all of their memories and interactions with Spider-Man, and something missing, there's something missing from that. So of course Ned creates the spider tracker to thank him and find out who he is. They have the most memories with Spider-Man than anyone. But that leads us into easily the most controversial and talked about moments of this film. Do MJ and Ned remember Peter? Now I think it is very obvious that MJ and Ned do not remember their memories with Peter. And before you attack me in the comments, let me explain. MJ and Ned clearly have a hole in their hearts, a gap in their memories, and MJ now knows why. It's because Spider-Man did this spell to make them forget him. But now she realizes that she's trying to feel whole again. That's why she invites Peter up to their apartment to say hi to Ned, because she was curious about what that feeling is and wants to feel it. And I think that's why we see her on the rooftop of Midtown Tech at the end of the movie clutching her Black Dahlia necklace, because she now knows what that missing feeling is. She just doesn't know what to do with it. And for the ending with Ned, with the handshake and whatnot, I honestly think that all just has to do with muscle memory and him saying, Peter. I don't think it's him remembering Peter. I think now that MJ in their apartment said, Peter, be careful. And he goes, Spider-Man's name is Peter. I think he is now realizing that this Peter Parker, the flower guy, Maynard, whatever, is Spider-Man. I think that's what that is. Peter is doing something incredibly hard. He's rehashing his friendship with them from scratch, putting one foot in front of the other to rebuild those connections. And that's a beautiful message. And I know a lot of people are saying that when Jean Grey froze everyone within a kilometer of her and MJ and Ned were affected, their memories came back then. But guys, wouldn't that have to also apply to every other New Yorker affected? Because it wasn't just MJ and Ned who knew that Spider-Man was Peter Parker. It was everyone. The entire world knew. You'd have to apply that same logic to every New Yorker affected by Jean. I just don't think that's true. I really think that Peter is going to be rebuilding these memories and rebuilding these friendships with MJ and Ned in the future. Marissa Tomei also reprises her role as Aunt May in the form of a memory that Jean tries to tap into. This memory takes place at the end of Spider-Man Homecoming when Aunt May discovers that Peter is Spider-Man. It's a scene that I didn't think we needed until now, and it hammers in those values that Aunt May teaches Peter that he carries with him always and needs to be reminded of. And I don't think it's a coincidence that this was the memory that Jean was able to tap into. I think subconsciously Peter's spider sense knew that Jean needed a safe space to decompress, and that speech from Aunt May was the perfect trick to do it, and it was so beautiful, and I was just in awe of that moment. Tapping into Peter's mutation next, because it was something I was super interested to see, and the Venom fanboy in the back of my head really thought that it was going to lead up into Peter getting the black suit in some way, but honestly, I am very glad they didn't touch upon that in this movie. I think it works a lot better for something fantastical to happen to Spider-Man in Secret Wars instead of playing into the Hive Mind and Clintar arc. But we see this mutation that Peter is having is kind of the opposite of what happens to Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man in Spider-Man 2. Tobey in Spider-Man 2 is having trouble just using his spider powers because all he wants to be is Peter Parker, so that side of him is pushing the spider powers out. In this, we see Tom truly in his prime as Spider-Man, and all he wants to be is Spider-Man, so now his spider powers are taking over. He gains organic webbing, heightened senses, heightened agility, and already superior strength on his already crazy strength. I think that scene of him swinging through the rain in his street clothes is just an absolute behemoth of an emotional roller coaster. I think that was done beautifully, and then when he gets home all drenched, reading the letter, gripping the letter, and then his spider powers start to take over, it's really intense, and I love that. Him gripping the letter, looking at the veins in his wrist change, and then his eyes going black, seeing that in the reflection of his monitor, and then him just standing up and collapsing. Oh my god, it was so intense. Tom Holland nailed that scene. I also really liked how his powers were fluctuating throughout it. You know, it wasn't just like, okay, now he has web shooters, okay, now he doesn't. He really had to learn to adapt, especially with that fight with the inhabited version of Scorpion. It was really, really cool. Now, before we do get to our last topic, which is the post-credit scene, I really want to talk about the development, the direction, the visuals, and the action sequences, because this movie was created beautifully by thousands of passionate creatives who just are so loving of this character and determined to give us the best adaptation of the character, and I'm just so grateful for all of them. Especially, you know, the director, Destin Daniel Cretton. You know, when it was first announced that we were going to get a new director and it was going to be Destin Daniel Cretton, I was a little on the fence, even though I really had no recommendations on who should be up next. But then I very, very quickly turned, because the way Destin was talking about Spider-Man, how passionate he was, and he knows he's one of us. You know, he's a fan first. He is a passionate person first, who just happens to be a fantastic director. So you don't need my seal of approval, Destin. You've already got it from literally everybody. But this Spider-Man fanboy wants you to come back for Spider-Man 5, and I am so excited to see what you can do next. And to all of the other people who worked on this movie, just thank you so much for handling this character who is so incredibly important to me and so many other people with such grace, such care. I am really just in awe of all of you. Thank you all for creating such a beautiful story. I really do mean that from the bottom of my heart. I loved it. The action was incredible. All of the practical effects were believable and powerful. You really felt like Spider-Man was real in that moment. And Destin Daniel Cretton has been uploading a lot of the behind the scenes footage on his personal Instagram page. And if you go to that, you can see all of the beautiful behind the scenes action sequences taking place. And like, you're looking at your phone like that was shot practically. That's so cool. And I think that's so important nowadays, especially for a Marvel movie, because it just shuts up all of the wannabe film bros who think Marvel movies are only built on blue sound stages. And the icing on the cake was the visuals. What just a beautiful looking movie, whether it be the skies and the sunsets or just the different places of New York that we get to see. It really does bring back that New York is a character in these films. And they were shooting in England. And what really makes these visuals stand out is that beautiful new suit. I mean, I got this shirt that's designed off of it, and the way the red and blues react with light, they get brighter and bright, brighter situations, they get darker and darker situations. It really just contrasts and matches the vibe so well, and it sticks out beautifully. I love it. It is hands down the greatest Spider-Man suit we have seen on the big screen. Might even be the greatest super suit we have seen in superhero media. I am just so happy with the outcome of this film. It really is such a treat, and I am so happy that it is becoming as successful as it is already. It is truly deserving of that and proves why Spider-Man is such an important character to us all. Now, the future of Spider-Man is a little uncertain, and I will be releasing a video soon on what I want from Spider-Man 5, but here are some things I think we can deduce from the ending of Spider-Man Brand New Day. I think Peter will end up wearing this suit again in Secret Wars and keep this organic webbing until he receives his black suit in that. We also see Jean Grey taking a bus to upstate New York, alluding to the fact that she will find the Xavier Academy. Now, we don't know how that will work out, but we know that she is confirmed to be appearing in Avengers Secret Wars, so we'll see you then. And of course, the post-credit scene with the Spidey tracker that a lot of people thought was underwhelming, but at first, I personally thought it was relating to Tom Holland's Spider-Man being transported to Battle World. However, a lot of people online might think that it's actually the appearance of Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man coming back to Earth 616. Now, to that I say, I think that could also be it. I think they really left this vague enough to where you could interpret it in multiple ways, and Marvel could be like, yeah, we meant that, when they actually decide to do whatever they're actually deciding to do. Now, to sum up everything, Spider-Man Brand New Day is a fantastic step in the right direction for this next chapter of Tom Holland's Spider-Man. It redefines what it means to be a hero in his own Spider-Man way and proves once again why Spider-Man is the most beloved superhero to reach the cinemas. It takes new characters and old characters and blends the two worlds together in a way we've never seen before, tying each knot carefully and successfully. I am very eager to see what's next in store for Tom Holland and Destin Daniel Cretton, but for Spider-Man Brand New Day, my official review, I think one of the first real reviews on the channel, I am giving it an 8.5 out of 10. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, consider liking and subscribing. It would really mean a lot to me. Thanks, guys.